In 1973, a newborn chimpanzee was taken from his mother's arms to settle a scientific argument about the very nature of human language. For a few years, he lived exactly like a human child, wore clothes, ate at a table, learned to sign. Then the funding ran out. What happened to him next is the part of this story most people never hear. This is the full life of Nim Chimpsky. The experiment existed to answer one specific question. Linguist Nim Chimpsky had argued that language was a uniquely human trait, hardwired into the human brain, something no other species could ever truly acquire. Columbia University psychologist Herbert Terrace believed Chomsky was wrong and set out to prove it by raising a chimpanzee exactly like a human child from infancy, immersing him in American Sign Language the same way a hearing child is immersed in spoken language. If a chimp could learn to sign and use those signs meaningfully, it would challenge one of the most influential ideas in modern linguistics. Terrace needed a subject taken young enough and raised human enough that language would have every possible chance to take hold. He named the chimp Nim Chimpsky. It was a joke at Chomsky's expense. Terrace intended to prove him wrong using an animal bearing his own name. Nim was born at a primate research institute in Oklahoma. Just days after birth, he was separated from his biological mother and flown to New York, where he was placed with a human family in a Manhattan brownstone. His surrogate mother, Stephanie Lafarge, had no formal training in animal behavior or sign language. She was simply asked to raise him as she would raise her own child. Nim wore diapers. He drank from a bottle. He was breastfed by Lafarge alongside her own infant. He slept in a bed. For the first 2 years of his life, by every visible measure, he was being raised as a human son, not a laboratory subject. As Nim grew larger and more physically powerful, the reality of raising a wild animal inside a family home became harder to manage. He bit people. He broke furniture. He required near-constant supervision from a rotating team of student caretakers, sometimes working around the clock, whispering into tape recorders to log every sign he made and the context surrounding it. Nim was eventually moved out of the brownstone to a mansion owned by Columbia University in the Bronx, cared for by a shifting cast of teachers rather than a single family. Some caretakers later described genuine affection between themselves and Nim. Others later reflected that the constant disruption, the repeated changes in who was caring for him, and the physical confinement required to manage an increasingly strong young chimpanzee took a visible toll on him. Over roughly 3 years, Nim learned to produce more than 125 individual signs. Eventually, more than 300 by the time he was 9. Researchers recorded tens of thousands of individual signing instances. For a while, it looked like Terrace had succeeded, a chimpanzee communicating in human language. Then Terrace reviewed the film footage frame by frame. What he found unraveled the entire premise of the study. Nim wasn't spontaneously forming original sentences. He was responding to his teachers, who were unconsciously making the correct sign themselves a fraction of a second before Nim copied it. Nim's signing was almost entirely imitation and prompting, chasing rewards like food, drinks, and hugs, not genuine, spontaneous language. Terrace published his findings in the journal Science in 1979. His conclusion, chimpanzees, including Nim, could not truly use language the way humans do. He had set out to prove Chomsky wrong. He ended up proving him right. Once Terrace had his answer, the study no longer needed its subject. Project Nim was shut down in 1977. Nim was sent back to the Institute for Primate Studies in Oklahoma, the same facility where he'd been born, now 4 years old, and having spent his entire life until that point believing, in every way a chimpanzee can understand, that he belonged with humans. The Institute's director ran his facility very differently than the Manhattan brownstone Nim had grown up in, using tools like electric cattle prods and shock collars to manage his chimpanzees. Nim, who had spent years being hugged, dressed, and spoken to gently, was now just another animal in a research colony. As funding for language studies dried up throughout the primate research world, the Institute began selling off its chimpanzees to biomedical laboratories. In the early 1980s, Nim was sold to Lemsip, a pharmaceutical testing laboratory operated by New York University, where he was confined to a wire cage and slated to be used in hepatitis vaccine research. Lab technicians who worked with Nim during this period later reported something striking. He continued making sign language gestures toward the humans around him, years after the researchers who taught him had moved on with their careers. One of his former teachers, reflecting on learning where he'd ended up, said it felt as though they had betrayed their own child. Robert Ingersoll, one of Nim's longtime caretakers from his time at the Oklahoma Institute, refused to let him disappear into the research pipeline quietly. Ingersoll alerted Cleveland Amory, founder of the animal welfare organization, the Fund for Animals, to Nim's situation at LEMSIP. Amory negotiated Nim's purchase away from the laboratory before any hepatitis research could begin, and arranged for him to be relocated to the Fund's Black Beauty Ranch sanctuary in rural Texas. It was, by any measure, a rescue, but it wasn't a simple, happy ending. At Black Beauty Ranch, Nim lived largely in isolation for years, the sanctuary's first and only primate resident for a long stretch of time. He grew destructive, breaking televisions, and at one point killed a small dog that had wandered into his enclosure. Caretakers described a chimpanzee who had spent his entire life bounced between radically different worlds, never fully at home as a human, and never having lived among his own species long enough to be fully at home as a chimpanzee either. Eventually, other rescued chimpanzees, several from the same LEMSIP laboratory Nim had escaped, joined him at the sanctuary. His condition reportedly improved once he finally had companions of his own kind. Nim died of a heart attack in March 2000 at 26 years old, roughly half the natural lifespan of a chimpanzee in captivity. Terrace's published conclusion effectively ended the era of great ape language research as a mainstream scientific pursuit. The scientific question Nim was used to answer was resolved within a matter of years. The consequences of how he was raised and what was done with him once the answer was found lasted the rest of his life. Nim Chimpsky spent the first years of his life believing he was part of a human family. He spent the rest of it discovering over and over that he wasn't. He never got to decide any of it, not being taken from his mother, not being raised as someone he wasn't, not being sold once he was no longer useful. Was proving a linguistic theory worth what it cost him? You decide. Let me know in the comments.